It's been one day since I got back from Polyglot Gathering 2023 in Poland, and because there's no vlog this year, I've been spending extra time trying to revisit my memories and consolidate them in my head, and I thought maybe words could help them stay there, so I wanted to say something spontaneous. This year's gathering for me felt a little bit different from last year's, partly because after the 3-year gap, all I wanted to do was focus on what the gathering, the event, had to offer and learning new things, together with my little gang of new friends that have remained close till now. And as an eager newbie video creator, I was excited to document my experience over there, which sometimes put me into the mindset of an observer. This year for me has been all about the people, talking to them, dancing with them, losing quizzes together, fighting hangovers together, sometimes meeting new faces, meeting faces that I previously passed by but never met, meeting faces that I knew quite well but were previously disembodied virtual heads. And over the 4 or 5 days of the event, I spent most of the time lurking in the garden. I brought sunscreen. In the multilingual hut, talking to people, hearing their stories, and occasionally stroking little kittens. This time I've accepted that vlogging, filming, is more of a hobby, a side hustle, and in this case it's not worth taking myself out of the action to do that. And it's frightening how much it felt like it flew by, even more so than it did last year. This Polyglot Gathering was also full of milestones for me. One of them was having a real proper conversation in British Sign Language. It may have been short and seemed a bit trivial at the time, but after like 1 year and 2 courses of totally scripted dialogues, it felt downright magical to actually convey and receive information through a completely different medium of my hands. And of course, giving 2 talks, one of them in Polish, was a hell of a debut into the super secret Polyglot Gathering Speakers Club. The first one was in English, about Taiwanese, and that's a language that less people talk about at the gathering and less people speak it. And I'm happy to have introduced the language to some people who might have an interest in Taiwan or Sinitic languages in general, but have previously never learned anything about these less popular branches of the family. The only thing I regret is putting too much in there, but because I thought this is all requisite information, I had to put it in there. But it was like a bit too snappy in retrospect, and I'm afraid people could not absorb it, but thankfully it is recorded, so in due course you will be able to see it, pause and absorb the information that is in there. That would make a very solid foundation to start learning this language. And with my second talk in Polish about my podcast in Cantonese, 所以广生, initially I had lots of troubles and worries with the scheduling. I really regret initially rejecting to speak on the last day at 9 AM because I was worried about speaking Polish that early. But that was just my nerves talking, because after many reschedulings, not only did I end up speaking at the exact same time on Sunday at 9 AM, but over the few days I actually learned that my Polish was more than ready for such a talk. And with the topic as whimsical as mine, I was fully expecting an empty audience, or at least one that would be bored very quickly. But when I finished it and people walked up to me to express their interest in my topic, express their appreciation for what I had to say, I was overwhelmed. Some said that I made them reflect on the importance of learning and talking about languages in different languages, whereas the others were inspired by the sheer fact that I was ballsy enough to use this difficult, and yes, it is difficult, language to express myself. This was originally just a language learning goal that I'd set and announced in 2021. It was a little project that I designed as a technical test for myself and my language learning skills, but it has become so much more. There is a message that I've put out there, and for the first time I had something to say and something to contribute to a different linguistic world, different community, using my own words. I guess the next skill I would have to learn is to not overstuff my presentations. Looking at the people I've met this year, there were 2 particular highlights at Polyglot Gathering 2023. The first one was the biggest gathering of Welsh speakers you could probably ever find in Poland, and it is also one of the biggest I've ever been part of anywhere. Of course, Richard Simcoe and Gareth Popkins have always been there at the gathering, and 1 year ago I bust out my barely existent Welsh for the first time ever in my vlog, sort of just to document my progress. And 1 year later, I've become so much more comfortable in the language, and I'd happily strike up a conversation with anyone with a red dragon on their badge. So one day I was just grabbing a latte at the bar after my lunch, and I met a couple of Manx speakers, which itself is even more mind-blowing, who also speak Welsh. So I started a conversation. The strange moment came when I heard a separate, different Welsh conversation just a few feet from us. How often does that happen? And as we all, including Richard, engaged in sgwrs yn yr hen iaith, Gareth passed by, so we had to drag him over to join this monumental moment. We come from multiple different countries, and even more if you count where we're living, but we have all acquired this smallish language, and it became like a lingua franca just among us, just a little group. It was truly a bizarro world. The second highlight has to be meeting Easy Polish in person. So if you've been following my Instagram at Rhapsody in Lingo, I sincerely apologize for all that fanboy spam. But I recently realized that Easy Polish started just a few months before I started learning Polish in 2015-16. So in a sense, they've always been there for me. And actually on this channel, I have a video where I watch their videos and show you how I use it to help my Polish. I remember contacting them once a while ago, trying to visit them in Poland, but I could never make that happen. So when I saw Aga and Justina's names in the participant list, I had butterflies in my stomach. Well, Easy Dutch was here last year, and they are this year, so it sort of makes even more sense that Easy Polish would come as well. And one day, I was just sneaking out of a talk, and there they were. I don't think you have any idea how it's like to meet someone whom for years you have modeled your language after. It's like talking to a teacher, except they don't know you and also have 40,000 other students doing the exact same thing as you are. Sometimes you forget that people on YouTube are real people, but then you meet them, you watch the magic work from behind the scenes, you take part, you talk about it, you laugh together, you dance together, you swear together, you take silly pictures together, and you connect. And suddenly, it feels like they leap out of the screen and become real people that you can grab a pint with, or even be friends with. Oh, and Luca Lamparello saying, unprompted, that he's seen my videos and complimenting my Polish was pretty huge on the first encounter. I've looked up to his craft and methods and basically used his level of Polish as my goal for years. And even knowing that I'm not there yet, this felt like an affirmation to the effort that I've put into this project. Funnily enough, between giving a presentation, taking questions, joining language practice tables, having serious discussions, and late night drinking sessions, the past Sunday has been probably the only day in my life where I've spoken Polish as my main language. And having lived in an Anglophone country for the past 5 years. Oh, and I kept getting asked that for some reason, and my answer still boggles my mind. This was like an out-of-body experience. Like, is this a thing that I do now? Is this part of who I am? Or maybe even more? The Polyglot Gathering 2023 has been my 4th overall in-person gathering, and the first time I've revisited the same venue. And every time I go, even if the backbone of the program is the same, even if it's the same venue, the same hotel, the same rooms, it's always fresh. Because every time you go as a different person, and you meet new people who also change in fascinating ways thanks to language learning. And as we all say, everything else goes on hold when you're at the Polyglot Gathering. The outside world fades away, and all the worries in the world suddenly matter less than recalling that one niche word in your head, or finding that one person who loves the language as much as you do.